Like, I used to go to those real estate investor conferences in my area, and everybody would be talking, and anyone I talked to who had rental properties in Detroit, none of them, not a single one of them, had registered their properties as rentals, because they all said that it was a nightmare if you did that, and there was no repercussions if you didn't register. But I was worried about a tenant potentially slipping and falling at this property and then suing me, and then finding out during the lawsuit that this property is not registered for a rental, and I don't want to have to deal with all that potential headache, so I decided to get this property registered. The way it works is you go to the city, you fill out a piece of paper, and you pay a fee, and you tell them that you want to use this property as an investment property. But in order to do that, the city is going to send out their inspectors, and these inspectors are going to come to your property, and they're going to tell you what repairs need to be done in order for this property to be good as a rental. The problem was, if you wanted to make any minor change at the property, like even changing your smoke alarms or painting your windowsills, you had to pay a $100 permit fee. So anytime you had to make a minor change, you had to pay a permit fee first. Second, these city inspectors didn't coordinate with each other. One city inspector would say one thing, and then a second city inspector would say something completely different. And so it was so hard to get approved, because you would do all the work, and then a second city inspector would come out and say, why did you do this? And you would tell them, well, the first city inspector said this, and they'd say nope, and then they would fine you because you didn't do the work right to their standards, even though you did it to the first inspector standards. And third, to top it all off, the city inspectors would give you work and renovations that made no sense just because they could. So I ended up paying, I don't know, more than $1,000 for sure just in permit fees, because anytime I had to paint a window or change the batteries, I had to pay $100. And then city inspectors would come out and they would keep disagreeing on everything. One of the most frustrating examples of this was the electrical riser on the back of our house. So in the back of your home, you have an electrical meter. Attached to that is an electrical riser. One city inspector came out and said, your electrical riser needs to be 15 feet high. So we made that change, we paid the permit fee, and we made this electrical riser 15 feet. And then the second inspector will come out and they said, why is this riser 15 feet high? I want it 12 feet high. And we were like, the first inspector just said we need it 15 feet high. So now we have to start the process all over again. I have to pay to fix the work. I had to pay a permit fee. And now we have to pay the inspector to come out a third time just to review the electrical riser, because they couldn't agree on the work in the first place. And now when all these inspectors keep coming back again and again and again, they just keep finding more work, because this is how they're getting paid. And so now inspectors would come and say, you know what, we need you to replace all the electrical inside the home. Why? I don't know, we just want you to do that. And so then we ended up upgrading the entire electrical. We upgraded and replaced the entire plumbing system throughout the entire house, and we redid all the mechanical. No matter how many times we asked why, we could never get a justification for why we needed to do these repairs that were not necessary, because these things were already new, they were already functioning fine, but the city kept telling us that we needed to upgrade it without any reason why. Then, if that wasn't bad enough, a new inspector comes out and he said that we needed to raise the elevation of the house. Why? I have no idea, but he thought that the house was too low, and so he told us to raise the elevation of a house. It is not cheap or easy to raise the elevation of a house, and so now I was like, you gotta be out of your mind. Anytime I made money, I was funneling this money back into this property, and anytime I made rental money from my other properties, I was using all that cash to fund these repairs, and it got to the point where my business bank account was exhausted, and I had a drawer of cash in my home, like not a drawer of cash, but I had a drawer where I kept my reserve cash, and I had to dig into that drawer of cash, whatever I had left, because that was the only cash I had left to fund these repairs. Luckily, this was back during the 2008 crash time, when renovations and repairs were really cheap because contractors needed work, but it was really expensive. I think I ended up paying like $7,000 or $7,500 to raise the elevation of the home. And it still doesn't make sense why, but that's just something I had to do in order to get the property licensed so I could start making some money. Looking back, my problem was I was young, I was inexperienced, and I had no way to fight back. Like, if I was to redo this, I would start working with an attorney early on who has experience dealing with the city, because I was getting abused and I had no way to fight back, and I didn't even know you could fight back. But if I knew this now, I would have hired an attorney and I would have disputed half of the stuff. That way we could have actually figured out what needs to be done and why, and I could start working with the higher ups in the city. That way we can figure out what's really right and what's wrong. I'm not just saying this because I am an attorney. I'm saying this because if you have a good real estate attorney, they have to be a specific real estate attorney who is very familiar with doing real estate deals, because a real estate attorney can help you when it comes to buying the home. They can help you with dealing with contractors, and they can help you dealing with cities, because sometimes cities are gonna make your life very difficult, and if you have a good attorney on your side, they can help fight for you. So now I've dealt with contractor issue after contractor issue, and I've dealt with the city, and we're finally getting work done, and it looks like we're finally getting ready to rent this property out, and then the property got robbed. Somebody broke into the property and stole our hot water tank because they knew the home was vacant, and so that was a whole new expense that we had to deal with. You can see why I call this property a nightmare property, because everything that could go wrong did go wrong, but it taught me a lot. At this point, I've owned the property for years. I haven't made a single penny from it, and I've spent way more money on renovations on the home than I did actually purchasing the home, but the home is finally ready to be rented out after years of headache. So my management company rents out the home, we got a tenant, and now somebody's finally paying us $750 a month, and things are finally looking good, and I'm able to breathe again. Now, a few months into the tenants living in the property, a city inspector has the urge to go out and check on our property. They don't have any reason to go out there because the property is fully licensed. They don't tell us they're gonna go out there, and they don't tell our property manager or the tenant that they're gonna go out there. They just wanted to go check up on it. Why? I have no idea. So they go to the property, they knock on the door, and it turns out, we didn't know this was happening, but it turns out the tenant was running an illegal babysitting operation. So now the city inspector freaks out, they fine us, and they tell us that we need to get rid of this tenant, and so now the headaches start all over again. At this point, there's new fees I have to pay, I have to kick out the tenant, and at this point, I'm just so fed up with the property, I'm like, you know what, I'm just gonna sell it, that way I never have to deal with this property again. Now, I do got to give credit where credit's due, because there's been a lot of changes in the city of Detroit since I dealt with this nightmare property, and there's been a lot of upgrades in the city building department since then, and the new supervisor for the building department actually saw my video, the worst real estate deal ever, and he reached out to me personally and said, I apologize for all the things that you had to deal with, and if you have any more issues, just contact me directly. If you enjoyed this short clip from my longer videos, here's another clip that I think you'll love, and while you're at it, if you're interested in learning more about how to start generating passive income, our team put together an amazing guide on how to start generating passive income for free. All you gotta do is click that button right over there. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep hustling.